Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia and welcome back to episode 6 of our Let's Talk Lore 8 Princes series. Last episode, we saw the flames of war reignite after 8 years of peaceful rule by Empress Jia, as her resentment toward being without a son finally boiled over as she unjustly disposed and brutally murdered the crown prince Sima Yu. Little did she know, her actions were actually part of Sima Lun's plot to remove both her and the crown prince from the loyal line of succession to set himself up as the new emperor. In today's episode, we will see how long the dog-tailed emperor Sima Lun lasts on the throne, and along the way introduce a few new princes to our story. So last time, we left off with Sima Lun usurping the throne as he placed the old emperor Sima Jiong under house arrest. Within a month, the regional kings of the kingdom responded to his rule with a call to arms led by none other than Wang Sima Jiong. We last saw Sima Jiong when he aided Sima Lun in disposing Empress Jia, but Sima Lun's ambition for the throne disturbed Sima Jiong, and Sima Lun casted Sima Jiong away to Xuchang, with Zhang Wu in tow as the spy. However, Sima Jiong was able to flip Zhang Wu and had him feed Sima Lun and Sun Xiu false information as he prepared for war. Within a month of Sima Lun ascending the throne, Sima Jiong heralded to the world of Sima Lun's crimes and asked his fellow regional kings in Chengdu Wang Sima Ying, Hejian Wang Sima Yong, and many others to respond to his call and march towards the capital to restore the former and rightful emperor Sima Zhong and depose the false emperor in Sima Lun. As Sima Jiong marched out toward the capital of Luoyang, Sima Ying was the first to answer his call. As we last recall, Sima Ying was given a promotion under false pretenses by Empress Jia in the year 299 to get him out of the capital after he scolded Jia Mi during a weiqi or go incident. He was tasked with Sima Lun's old job of garrisoning the ancient northern capital city of Ye. Although Sima Ying was not exceptionally bright, he was willing to listen to his capable advisors, Lu Zhi, who was the great-grandson of the famous Lu Zhi during the Three Kingdoms era. Yes, this is another one of those times when the English spelling ends up being the same, but the Chinese characters and pronunciation ends up being completely different. Speaking of Lu Zhi, it's trivia time, as he was best known for being Gong Sun Zan and Liu Bei's teacher, and is the reason why in the game Total War Three Kingdoms that Gong Sun Zan and Liu Bei starts off the game with a former friend's relationship boost, as they were both pupils together under Lu Zhi. Now back to his great-grandson, who was Sima Ying's most trusted advisor, and he urged his king to join Sima Jiong's call to arm and march towards the capital. Sima Ying agrees, as Lu Zhi has served him well during the 2 years he had spent in Ye, and their success in managing Ye has resulted in Sima Ying to possess an army of over 200,000 men, which made him the most powerful regional king in the kingdom. Farther to the north, Sima Ai also responded to the call. This is the first time we have mentioned Sima Ai. Sima Ai is another one of the 8 princes, and in Chinese his name should actually be pronounced Sima Yi. But historically there have been some accounts of his name being pronounced Sima Ai, and since the 8 Princes DLC game spells his name as Sima Ai, I'll be sticking to this pronunciation going forward to avoid any confusions. Like our other 8 princes, we will first spend a little time to catch up with Sima Ai. Sima Ai was born in the year 277 as the 6th son of Emperor Sima Yan, thus making him the younger brother to Emperor Sima Zhong. He was also the younger brother of the now deceased Chu Wang Sima Wei, and as a matter of fact, they even share the same mother. In the year 289, at the age of 12, Sima Ai was granted the title of Changsha Wang, or the King of Changsha, as part of the last series of title grants by Emperor Sima Yan before his untimely death in the following year. When Sima Wei was deceived and used by Empress Jia, Sima Ai was still in the capital at the time due to his young age, and following Sima Wei's death, because they shared the same mother, Empress Jia stripped Sima Ai of his title of Changsha Wang and reduced his title to Changshan Wang. This might seem like a simple letter change in English, but Changsha was the large and lucrative commandery in the south that was the former base of Sun Jian, while Changshan was a small northern outpost best known for being the hometown of the legendary Zhao Yun. Not only was his title reduced, he was casted out of the capital to his assigned land at the young age of 14. Now 10 years later, the always dutiful and filial Sima Ai responds to Sima Jiong's call to depose the unjust Emperor Sima Lun and restore the throne back to his older brother and the rightful Emperor Sima Zhong. While Sima Ai only has a small force, he will play a critical role in securing the rear of Sima Ying during this campaign. The next king to receive Sima Jiong's call to arm was Hejian Wang Sima Yong, who is another one of our 8 princes. This is also the first time we mention him, so let's also take a little aside to learn about this long-distant relative to the Sima clan. Compared to the other 8 princes, Sima Yong has the farthest branch in the family tree. In Western terms, Sima Yong was the second cousin once removed to Emperor Sima Zhong. In Chinese, we'll just simply refer to him as the uncle to the emperor. He was the grandson of Sima Yi's younger brother, Sima Fu. Speaking of Sima Fu, it's time for another trivia fact. Throughout Sima Shi and Sima Zhao's attempt to take over the throne, their uncle Sima Fu remained staunchly loyal to the Cao clan and refused to take any titles granted by Emperor Sima Yan out of principle after he usurped Cao Huan's throne. Despite being a distant relative and a small regional king, Sima Yong proved to be quite a capable general and was named to garrison the key northern outpost of Ye in the year 291, followed by the key western outpost of Guanzhong in year 299. When news of Sima Jiong's rebellion first broke in the western regions, a local general, Xiahou Shi, decided to answer the call. Sima Yong contemplated the situation and decided against Sima Jiong's call, as he believed their small forces was no match to the central government's own elite military forces stationed around the capital. So Sima Yong responded by sending out his best general Zhang Fang and quelled Xiahou Shi's forces and promptly executed them in the market square. And when Sima Jiong's official messenger arrived to present Sima Jiong's written letter to Sima Yong arrested the messenger and had him sent to Emperor Sima Lun to show his loyalty. Delighted by the fact that the capable Western forces remained loyal to him, Sima Lun commanded Sima Yong to march his forces to the capital to join the war effort. So now we have 5 of the 8 princes officially engaged in an all-out civil war as shown on the map, and the future of the Jin dynasty stands in the balance. The first battles of this war happened in the east, as the central government forces representing Sima Lun responded to Sima Jiong's uprising. Despite all the preparation, Sima Jiong's forces were beaten back by the central government forces led by Zhang Hong. Sima Ying's mighty 200,000 men were also beaten back in their first battle against the central government forces led by Xu Chao and lost over 8,000 men. The 23-year-old Sima Ying had his first taste of real battle and soon lost his appetite for war after the first defeat and wanted to retreat back to the comforts of Ye. But at the urging of Lu Zhi, Sima Ying regrouped his overwhelming force and faced off with the central government forces once again. The early periods of this war was marked with a series of back-and-forth battles where neither side had the upper hand. During the same time, Sima Lun and Sun Xiu were busy in the capital performing rituals to seek guidance from the heavens to ask for fortunes in the battle to come. Sun Xiu once again resorted to his old tricks of using the cult to spread rumors of imminent heroic victories to try to bolster morale, but few bought into his tricks, and the court grew tired of this superstitious nonsense of Sun Xiu and Sima Lun and became more and more resentful to the pair as the war waged on. What made matters worse was the fact that Sima Lun and Sun Xiu overreacted to every report from the front. Whenever news of victory would arrive, they would over-exaggerate the victory and conduct rituals to thank the heavens. However, whenever news of setbacks or defeat arrived, they withheld the information and issued retreat order to their forces on all fronts in order to defend the capital, only to reverse them when new news of the victories that followed. This constant shift from advancing and retreating dampened the morale of the frontline troops and caused confusion among the ranks, and ultimately contributed to the defeat of the northern central government forces, who were already facing immense odds as Sima Ying's army vastly outnumbered those of the central government. With the northern forces decimated, Sima Ying's armies now made preparations to cross the Yellow River and march into the capital. At the same time, Sima Jiong's forces had made little progress and were locked in a stalemate with the central government forces near Xuchang. Sima Ai's forces, meanwhile, had helped beaten back a loyalist rebellion in Ye, while Sima Ying's forces were on the front lines, and helped secure the rear for Sima Ying. To the west, Sima Yong heard the news of the annihilation of the northern central government forces while he was marching to reinforce Sima Lun in the capital, and promptly decided to switch alliances and join the others on their march against Sima Lun. With the capital now surrounded on all sides, Sima Lun and Sun Xiu tried to make plans to escape, but before they could decide on the escape route, the new general of the left, Wang Yu, led 700 men in a coup to arrest and execute Sun Xiu. Wang Yu forced Sima Lun to surrender to the regional kings, restored the throne to Sima Jiong, placed the blame for his poor decisions to Sun Xiu, and begged for forgiveness in his life. Sima Lun, without any real choices, agreed, and was held in prison to await his fate when the regional kings arrived. But before any of the regional kings actually arrived at the capital, the court, long held hostage by Sima Lun, decreed Sima Lun to death by poison for his crimes against the throne, and he was offered poison wine to end his own life. And in 3 short months, Emperor Sima Lun dies in his cell in April of the year 301. His 4 sons were also executed shortly after. With his death, the second wave of the 8 princes civil war comes to an end. But with so many powerful regional kings, the next wave of the civil war is quick to come. Of the regional kings, the first to arrive at the capital was Sima Ying. Following the advice of Lu Zhi, Sima Ying kept his armies out of the capital and only entered himself to pay respect to his older brother, Emperor Sima Zhong, and credited the restoration to Sima Jiong, who was the first to issue the call to arm. He also sent a portion of his men to assist Sima Jiong, as he was still struggling with the central government forces at the time. However, soon those forces will surrender as news of Wang Yu's coup and the death of Sima Lun arrives, and Sima Jiong promptly arrives at the capital next. Unlike Sima Ying, Sima Jiong marched his force of over 100,000 men directly into the capital, where he took up residence in his father Sima You's old residence. The emperor received him warmly, and after hearing from Sima Ying that Sima Jiong was the first to support his restoration, he named Sima Jiong as the new prime minister and regent to the kingdom. Sima Jiong quickly took on his new role and began rewarding all the regional kings who answered his call. He names Sima Ying as the grand commander of the army, but Sima Ying refuses and asks simply to return to Ye to continue to defend the kingdom's northern frontier, to which Sima Jiong happily agrees. Next, he restores Sima Ai to his former title of Changsha Wang and gives him a role at court in the capital as a reward for his role in answering his call. Lastly, although Sima Yong was late to join his side, he was nevertheless given a simple promotion, but was asked to remain his post in Guanzhong to defend the western frontiers of the kingdom. With this, new hopes of peace and prosperity was born, but they were also quickly dashed, as Sima Jiong proved to be a greedy and incapable prime minister and regent. Although Sima Jiong made no notions to usurp the throne like Sima Lun, Sima Jiong thought his father's old residence was a bit too small for his position and forced over 100 families to move out of their homes surrounding his residence so he can expand his residence into a miniature palace on par with the emperor's. He also requested that all important government documents to arrive at his palace first prior to being passed on to the emperor, and proceeded to spend his days indulging himself in luxury, decadence, and pleasure. While Sima Yong was enjoying himself as the de facto emperor of the kingdom, his men were also busy fighting among themselves over key roles in the new government. One of the losers of this political power grab was the ambitious general named Li Han, who felt he has been wrongly excluded from key government positions as he was rivals with one of the higher ranking generals at the time. So in May of 302, shortly a year after Sima Jiong became prime minister, the bitter Li Han rides out of the capital to seek the help of Sima Yong, who he knew held a grudge against Sima Jiong after receiving so little reward for switching sides in the war against Sima Lun. He presents Sima Yong with a forged imperial decree and explains that although Sima Jiong has not usurped the throne, his actions undermine the emperor and threaten the kingdom. Li Han claims that if Sima Yong can rally the regional kings in the same exact way Sima Jiong had forced the regional kings to overthrow Sima Lun, then he can easily depose Sima Jiong and replace him as the new regent. As we have seen how Sima Yong switched sides before, Sima Yong was not going to be anybody's fool or tool, so he judged the situation for himself and decided that a simple forged decree will not be enough to rally the regional kings, so he devised a more sinister plan to legitimize his campaign against Sima Jiong. First, he secretly wrote to all his fellow regional kings, starting with the most powerful one in Sima Ying, to inform them of his intentions to move against Sima Jiong. Then he had his men spread rumors in the capital that the regional kings are once again marching against Sima Jiong, and that Changsha Wang Sima Ai, who was serving in court at the time, will be their inside men in the capital to help them ultimately overthrow Sima Jiong. In reality, Sima Ai, who never developed into a big regional player because of his early demotions following the death of Sima Wei, was never consulted by Sima Yong of his plans. Sima Yong simply hoped that once his rumors spread, Sima Jiong would execute Sima Ai, and thus give him a proper reason to rally the other regional kings against Sima Jiong. Sure enough, once the rumors reached the ear of Sima Jiong demanded for the rest of Sima Ai. However, refusing to be a mere pawn in the battle between Sima Yong and Sima Jiong, Sima Ai, who had less than 100 personal guards at the time, will stage one of the most astounding underdog stories of the ages to consolidate his place in the history books alongside the 8 princes. To find out Sima Ai's fate and the fate of all 5 remaining princes, please come back tomorrow for our penultimate episode of the series. And this concludes our episode 6 of the 8 Princes edition of Let's Talk Lore. In my original plans laid out in episode 1, this episode was supposed to feature Sima Ai, but because of how juicy the story has been so far and my desire to not gloss over any of the details, I will be sliding Sima Ai's story into tomorrow's episode to do my favorite prince, Sima Ai, the justice that he deserves. Once again, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to support the channel and to get notifications when new videos are released. Thank you again for watching, and see y'all next time. Bye!